Hello fellow coffee botherers, in this video we're going to be talking about this, the Niche Duo. In particular I'm going to be answering the question, how good is it in general and how does it compare to the Niche Zero? Yes, you could say I'm a bit late. This was released almost a year ago at the time of filming, 10 months to be exact, but that's because I'm tight and I've been pestering the heck out of Niche to loan me one, and they finally gave in when I did this face for long enough. So this is a loaner. I mean I borrowed it. I don't mean it prefers to be by itself. It seems quite comfortable either on its own or chatting to its smaller sibling. What I mean is if sent me one to borrow for this review and then to be sent back. I try to do this with anything I want to review. I can't always, but if I can get a loan unit to be sent back after, rather than buying one, I'll do that. I'm working on changing this in the future. See the community thread for more on that. So let's start out with the specs. Hopefully Ollie will put the dimensions on the screen and not purposely leave it out to make me look like a moron. Anytime now, Ollie. It's about this tall, this wide, and this deep. And this is what it looks like compared to the Zero. So as you can see, it's slightly larger than something slightly smaller. The Duo has 83mm flat burrs, and there are two burr sets, one for espresso and one for filter. This one was sent to me just with the espresso burrs, which I requested. You can get it with filter burrs or pay an extra £120 to have it come with both. You can use it as an all-rounder with the espresso burrs for espresso and manual brew, but if you get it with the filter burrs, I'm told it won't grind fine enough for espresso. Both burr sets are by Mazza. The espresso burrs are the Mazza 151B, the stock burrs in the Mazza Major, and the filter burrs are the 151F, the stock burrs in the Mazza ZM. The Zero has 63mm conical burrs, the Mazza 191C, the burrs from the Mazza Coney. They both have a DC motor. I don't believe it's exactly the same though. From what I can gather, the motor in the Duo is based on the Zero, but it's slightly different. They both have a planetary gearbox, which is how the grinding power is generated, and we'll come back to that. The Duo is very simple in operation. One switch on and off, that's it, the same as the Zero. With both, the wood bits are oak and the body is aluminium. If you've seen my YouTube short unboxing the Duo, you'll see what a great experience that is, and I'll link to it in the description. It's incredibly well boxed. They've even done away with the usual annoyance of trying to figure out how to lift the polystyrene out of the box by putting a strap around it to be used to lift it out. And I'm not going to make the obvious childish joke there, by the way, because we did that in the short. There's instructions on the polystyrene and the inside of the box, and everything is really easy to understand, and the burrs are already zeroed. The motors. From using the Zero, I had no worries whatsoever about the motors, but from other reviews I've watched and read, I was given the impression that the motor might be underpowered on the Duo, given that it's the same 130-watt motor as the Zero, turning a much bigger flat burr set. So I did some research into this, and this isn't quite right for a couple of reasons. For one, it isn't the exact same motor. From what I can gather, the motor they've developed for the Duo is based on the Zero, but it isn't exactly the same, and neither of them are actually 130 watt as such. If you look at the DF83, for example, and see that that's a 550 watt motor, and the Niche Duo, as with the Zero, is rated at 130 watt, I can understand how you would see this as being the case, but they're completely different motors. The Niche Duo has a DC motor. 130 watts is just what the motor is rated at when it's grinding coffee beans. The wattage it actually draws will depend on how much the motor requires to create the turning force via the gearbox to do the job. So it's just a different approach. Niche uses a DC motor and a planetary gearbox, which multiplies the torque produced by the motor. And the combination of the motor and the gearbox delivers more than enough grinding power to grind just about any coffee beans. If you think I'm really clever with all of my knowledge of motors and gearboxes and so on, think again. All I've done is lurks on a couple of forums containing people who are actually clever, mainly the Coffee Time UK forum and homebarista.com, which I'll link in the description. With most grinders, you can experience a stall if the burrs come across a hard bit of bean or a foreign object, such as a bit of grit, a stone, or the long-lost heart of the ocean necklace from the Titanic, for example. I've had the Zero for almost 4 years. It's literally never stalled once. It's never broken a sweat, figuratively speaking. Okay, it will cut out if you try and grind a rock or something as a fail-safe, but I've never had any qualms whatsoever about grinding power. And my experience with the Duo so far leads me to believe that it has more than enough grunt. In this example, I'm grinding my Seaworks Custard Cream Nicaragua, a high-grown, washed-processed light roast. So these are the most challenging for grinders, and the finer you grind them, the harder it is to grind. This is on the finest grind, and as you can see, the Duo will have no problems. Just to check it's not a fluke, let's do the same with the other 3 coffees in the Seaworks Light Roast Lovers collection box. I've even seen videos of people grinding raw green coffee beans with the Duo, which is mad. I'm not going to do that because it's just a bit over the top. Showing that the Duo makes light work of a light roast, high-grown washed coffee, I think is a strong enough example that the Duo, as with the Zero, is definitely not underpowered. Try saying that 3 times fast. Who wrote this stupid script? I've also seen a couple of threads online suggesting that this could be an issue in the long term, and although only time will tell, I just can't see that. Niche strikes me as a very clever bunch of people. I think the success of the Zero has shown that they know what they're doing, and I just can't see them bothering to release a grinder that could cause them headaches over the years. The Lid. I've seen some reviews of both the Zero and the Duo referring to the Lid and or the hinge as being poor quality and weak and so on. There's a little wobble, but I think we're scraping the barrel a bit for negatives if we're referring to the lid wobble. It'll only wobble if you wobble it, so don't wobble it. The hinge and the lid itself aren't weak at all. I'm heavy-handed, and if I've not managed to break it in nearly 4 years, it's not weak. In fact, the plastic lid people are referring to is polycarbonate resin thermoplastic. What's that? No idea, just googled it. But it's very tough. It's used for helmet visors, riot shields and bullet-resistant glass, so I reckon it's strong enough to use for a grinder lid. I'll link to Dave Corby's review in the description where Niche wanted him to break the lid or the hinge. Noise. They're both very quiet grinders. Let's listen to the sound of both and check the decibels from 1 metre away, both empty and grinding. As you saw, the Duo is slightly louder than the Zero if you run it empty, but there's only a couple of decibels in it when actually grinding. Let's talk about retention. Exchange retention is close to zero with both, meaning the ground coffee retained in the chute that will come out into your next dose if you don't purge. If I don't knock it, I'm finding I get about 0.2 grams of retention at the most from 18 grams, and if I do quite a bit of knocking, literally zero retention. This is about the same with both the Duo and the Zero. Personally, I don't think 0.2 grams in an 18 gram dose is worth bothering about, so I wouldn't even bother knocking it. Static. You might notice some static initially with both grinders, and you should find that it improves after a few weeks of use. I've never bothered doing RDT or the spoon handle technique, for example, with the Zero. I did notice a bit of static at first with the Duo, but it only lasted a few days. Grind adjustment. This is one of my favourite things about the Duo, and I do slightly prefer the Duo to the Zero for this. They're both stepless adjustments. The Duo gives you 70 settings on the ring, the Zero gives you 50 marked settings. The Duo gives you slightly more precise adjustment though. The pointy ball actually points directly at the lines, and there are half step lines in between the numbered settings, and it's possible to adjust it by half of a half step, a quarter step then, and know exactly where you're at. Grinding speed. For espresso, dialed in for the Sage or Breville dual boiler at grind size 10.5 takes roughly 19 seconds to grind 18 grams. 15 grams for filter with the espresso burrs at grind size 20 takes about 12 seconds. With the Zero also dialed in for the dual boiler, 18 grams takes about 12 to 13 seconds, and 15 grams at filter grind takes about 10 seconds. Cleaning and maintenance. Swapping the burrs out is incredibly fast and simple with the Duo. You literally just unscrew the adjustment ring, pull out the top burr, use the included tool to remove the bottom burr and then swap them out. This also means taking the burrs out to clean is just as fast and easy, and it's very similar with the Zero, just one bolt and very simple to do. So what's the verdict? What do I think of the Niche Duo? In short, I think it's brilliant. If I wanted a big flat burr single doser grinder, I'd probably buy the Niche Duo, because I've loved using the Niche Zero, and this is almost identical in workflow, just slightly slower for espresso, and as I've said, I just prefer the adjustment slightly on the Duo, that pointy ball and the half step markers. In terms of taste, I don't want to talk about that too much. I've seen a lot of people talking about quite specific taste profiles with one or the other, along the lines of the Duo bringing more clarity and slightly less body, and with the Zero bringing more body and more sweetness, but I think this really depends. It depends on your palate, it depends on the beans you're using, it depends how well dialed in you are and so on, but generally speaking, I think it's fair to say that the Duo and the Zero are both capable of great tasting coffee. But as I've said, if you're really into filter, you'll probably find better results with the filter burrs. It was actually the director James Cameron who drew Kate Winslet like one of his French girls, not Leonardo DiCaprio, which has nothing to do with clicking the like button, but click the like button if you're now thinking about a job as a movie director. Thank you very much for watching, and if you think coffee is... Alright. and you enjoyed this video, we've got tons of content about how to make better coffee at home to take you from beginner to home barista. We've got reviews and how-tos on the most popular machines. If you like the sound of that, click on my face to subscribe. Tatty Bye!